Great. So, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to yet another edition of Conversation from the Trenches. Today, I have a very special guest with us, and I call her very special because she's somebody I wanted on the show for quite a while. Just before we came on, I was just telling her that I wrote her name on a list and told the universe, please bring this guest onto my show because she is an awesome rock star and she's such an incredible role model for so many of us women. I have with me Vandana Suri, the founder of Taxshe. Vandana, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So just a little bit about Vandana. Vandana is a founder of Taxshe, as I told you. Taxshe is an organization that is deeply committed to creating an ecosystem that offers safe mobility for women and children. Vandana is also at the heart of several, quite a few gender-centered change initiatives, which we will explore during the course of this conversation. Vandana is a person. She's been an investment banker. She's a proud cabbie, as she calls herself, and she empowers women. She enables women to get behind wheels on the roads. Right, Vandana, do tell us a little bit more about yourself because this is the first time I'm meeting you. So all I know about you is what I have followed on social media and what you have sent me. So do give us a sense of yourself as a person before we jump into the conversation.
I'm just one of all the women out here in our country around us uh,
Mhm.
who's seen abuse, who's been part of the Me Too, and who wants to slap the shit out of the world for whatever they've done to women. Okay.
Yeah,
As simple as
yeah,
that. I'm just one of each one of you. And
yeah.
I'm a single mom. I'm a fighter.
Mhm.
I've always been a
Yeah.
fighter. And
Mhm.
I think there are some people who have the fighter strength in them, and we should bank on it rather than
Oh,
shying away from it.
I love that. I really, really love that you say it because, on this talk show, we are 26 or 27 episodes down, and we have covered all kinds of conversations ranging from abuse to domestic violence to mental health. And I think one of the themes that comes up over and over again is the fact of having to stand up for yourself, having to fight for yourself, and to be incredibly resilient and bounce back over and over again. But now that we're talking about abuse, I'm going to go dive straight in to what you do right now, and which is about creating an ecosystem for safe mobility. One of the things that drew me to you, that drew me to your journey and drew me to your work long before we met or had an interaction, was the fact that you envisioned an ecosystem that would offer safe mobility to women and children. Now we live in a country where safety, women's safety, particularly in a public space, is a very key concern. And whether people want to accept it or not, the truth of it is this is something that all women, carry as this burden on your back, and even with their children, right? It would seem that having women cabbies is the most obvious solution to this problem, right? But we don't see enough women. Just before we came on, we were talking about Uber and Ola, even in amongst them, that we don't see so many women driving cabs. Why do you think we have such low numbers of women cabbies on our roads?
I can share I can share my experience of being a taxi driver. When I set up Taxi and I started looking out for women who could possibly join me, I didn't find any. So I said,
Mm,
okay, let me become one and see what in the world happens at the ground level. So the ground
mm,
level reality is that if I were to drive an Ola and an Uber and a Tom, Dick, and Harry in my car
mm,
and face the risk of myself getting raped for whatever money that
mm,
you give me, I will not
yeah.
let that happen. So,
Mm,
um, if I don't the client, I'm not going to take that client. I'm not going to take any शकल पे और यहाँ पे लिखा नहीं होता है he is not one of those not all men. He's a safe guy. There's nothing written. As
Absolutely.
far as I'm concerned, I
Absolutely.
feel a threat with any guy sitting in my car. That was
Yes.
the point number one. Point number
Hmm.
two was that, the way Ola Uber works, you go
Hmm.
from one drive to another and to another. You may wake up your house may be someplace 50 kilometers away, and
Hmm.
there is women feel very safe when they are known familiar faces. So
Hmm.
that was the second thing that happened.
Yeah.
So I realized that this was a problem. The third problem was the lack of toilets. Where am I going to
Yeah.
go? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the real action. Let's say there's shit everywhere. That's the reality of the toilets around here.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fourth big thing was that
Hmm.
if there was something that happened in the house, okay, my child fell down, my husband fell sick, my in-laws, something happened, as a woman
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be running home and
Yeah.
managing them. So if I've
Yeah.
got up in one place, I ended up 50 kilometers away, how am I going to
Hmm.
be home? And this
Yeah.
four reasons are the reasons why there are no women cabs or such
Hmm.
negligible numbers across the globe. It's not just India.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's comfortable for the person working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting that you mentioned this as a global phenomenon because today morning when I shared this, this post
Yes.
about our conversation on LinkedIn, there was a lady in Norway who said, "I'm very curious to know because I don't see women cab drivers in Norway either, and I really want to understand why not enough women are. We don't see enough women taxi drivers." And I'm just very glad that you mentioned this is a global problem because. We all know that we know there are certain industries where the diversity and inclusion measures allow women to enter at a certain level, but at the same time there are a number of industries, a number of domains where the barriers are so hard, they're so cutthroat that it's really difficult for women to forget entering to hold on, right? So I'm very curious. You've laid
Yep.
out the ground reality and the landscape. What specifically inspired you to start Taxi? Because you're an investment banker, you had a corporate life, you had a corporate journey. What made you, was there something very specific that made you say, I'm going to be a cabbie and I'm going to change a certain, I'm going to change, I'm going to fill a gap out here?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say, as a personality itself, all my life
Mhm.
I've been sitting with that anger inside like soda bottle. You just open it and it comes out. Okay.
Yeah. Mm,
Because I could not accept things just sitting quietly about it. That
mm,
was me from childhood, growing up, and I always wanted to have something very
mm,
meaningful that I do in life. So that is the background of what works in the head. But what triggered this thing was that
mm,
and I think November or October. This was much after the Nirvana rape incident. There was a rape in
mm,
an Uber in Delhi, okay? And the next
mm,
day, uh,
mm.
her interview came in the paper where she very clearly said, you know what, if a woman was not driving me, na,
It would have never
this would not
happened.
have happened.
Mm,
Those words of yeah, those words of that girl, that victim, I
mm,
would say, just
mm.
stuck into my head. I said, she's talking sense. Oh, so where are the women drivers? Why are they not there? And
Yeah.
that was it. It was that
Mm,
1 minute switch in your head. It just
yeah.
happens. And I
Yeah.
think it gave a lot of purpose to all that negativity and anger inside me, to mold it
Mm,
into something which is so positive. I mean, whether
yeah.
it is negativity, whether it is anger, energy,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm just moving it towards a positive side. It's got a lot of power.
Yes.
And that's
Absolutely.
where we are.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the most powerful solution comes, when you can take anger or grief or sadness or something very powerful, which is having a very strong effect and impact on you, and you actually channel it into creating something that's very, very, very constructive. So I can see Sheetal has joined us
Yep.
and she says, "Hi, Vandy." Sheetal, by the way, is my sister-in-law. I had no idea both of you knew each other very well.
Hi,
Sheetal,
Sheetal.
hi, thanks so much for
Yeah.
joining us. So, Vandana, now, you said you had a
Oh,
split
wow. What a
second.
small world.
I know, Sheetal's my sister-in-law, actually. So, and I think Sheetal, this is the first time
Yes.
you're joining my live. So, Vandana, you're a super special guest to bring my sister-in-law onto my live and say hello. So, quick thing. You mentioned that
So
it
she has been
was the world.
associated with Taxi, by the way.
Who, Sheetal?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, Sheetal worked with Taxi for some time in the initial days.
oh, interesting. Okay, I did not even know that. So you said there was a momentary switch in your thinking, that moment you had, that momentary switch when
Yeah.
you read the words of this woman who had been who had been abused, and I mean, who was wronged, right? And you decided to make a change. How did you go about taking an idea, that idea that came to your mind in that one moment? How did you go about taking an idea and transforming it into an active, on the road, working business? Can you tell us the journey of actually creating, taking it from idea to business?
So I think this all came. I decided to incorporate the company with a couple of my friends
Mm-hmm,
who knew me, not very close friends, more like professional associations I had.
mm-hmm,
Anyway, as destiny went, they moved out of it much early
mm-hmm,
days of Taxi. And the point was that I went ahead and incorporated a company straight off.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
the whole business started forming the day I put up a Facebook post, my first public post of Facebook. I had never done a Facebook of any worth of business or whatever. I was just,
mm-hmm,
faffing around there. And
mm-hmm,
I put up a post that, you know what, this is what I want to do. And would you know people, would you know women who will join me?
mm-hmm,
And that day I had
mm.
3,000 calls.
Wow.
And then I knew, wow, there's a demand for this. There's an
Yes.
absolutely very high demand for this. And, it just makes perfect sense to build up further. And absolutely running this. That's your
Mm-hmm.
market tester, no? Is the
Absolutely.
client willing to pay?
Yep.
That's how
Yep.
you test it. And
Right.
post which I became a cabbie myself. I started driving to understand what works, what doesn't work. Because if I had
Mm-hmm.
to get more women into the system, I need to
Mm-hmm.
know why they will stick.
Yeah.
So then I started with my own insecurities as a taxi driver. I realized that
Mm.
I had to make a business which will suit this woman. Okay. And
Yeah.
so we did an entire business modeling of driving children to schools and tuitions.
Mm.
These routes are the clientele is fixed because people take whole year bookings from you for tuitions
Yeah.
also through.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very predictable route. It's a very predictable client. It's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
fun. It's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
motherhood in action.
Yep.
Many times we don't enjoy our own kids, we enjoy other people's kids. It's the same
Yeah.
way. And that's
Yeah.
when we made this modeling
Mm-hmm.
which is
Mm-hmm.
suitable to her,
Hmm.
you know. And
Okay.
so, and then I really, then there were no women. So then I started walking into slums without
Okay.
knowing the local language. Kannada baat karte. I found one kid jumping around, 7-year-old little
Mm-hmm.
girl. She became my
Mm-hmm.
translator.
How
So
sweet.
I was talking to her in English, and she was She was talking to the vegetable vendor in Kannada and Tamil, and
Mm.
translating what I want to say. And what an experience that was! Literally having a 7-year-old translator walking with you. These
Right.
small pieces, they just yeah. Tell me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so how long ago was this? How many years back was this?
2015, January 2015, I got incorporated, and
Okay.
yeah, so it's been very long now. It's 7 years.
Right. So tell us about the growth. Tell us how this business grew because you said you went into the slums, you went looking for people. I can almost imagine I mean, I can almost imagine the inhibitions in the minds of people, uh, particularly, like I mean, because we all have a certain amount of interaction with women who are not from the same socioeconomic status, up and down. We have those segments. And one of the things we often notice with, women who are, say, selling produce on the roadside or, who are helping us manage our homes is they have this inhibition about even being in your car. Like even something as simple as if you say it's getting late, let me drop you. There is this hesitation of getting into a car because it's so unfamiliar. It's an unfamiliar space for them, right? So that must have been quite a barrier to break through, or did you not come across this barrier? Tell us about the journey of getting women, getting them to not just learn driving, but actually take it up as a job and work it.
So I must tell you that I'm talking of the marginalized communities.
Yeah.
You give them the option of driving, they love it. Okay, they love it.
Okay.
They are so super
Mm-hmm.
excited. Think I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
drive a car. Okay, so first
Mm-hmm.
level of interest
Mm-hmm.
is to drive a car. Okay, there's
Mm-hmm.
Sheetal has written that.
Mm-hmm.
The first level of
Yeah.
interest is that wow, I'm going to drive a car. The second
Yeah.
level of interest from the women is when I
Mm-hmm.
tell them of
Mm-hmm.
when I show them purpose. So she could have been a
Mm.
maid somewhere, she could have been a cook somewhere, and she'll still make that. But I'm
Yeah.
telling her,
Mm.
you are shaping the childhood of our country. You are keeping children safe. You're a mother for
Yeah.
these children. This is
Yeah.
the purpose of your life. So when I talk to her as a leader, when I'm talking to her that you are changing, this is the impact you're creating, they just
Yeah.
love it. It's that value in life. Damn, I have done something so big. The problem does not come from the women, the problem comes from their families.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
suddenly, this woman, she has driving skills, if she's making this kind of money, she
Mm.
talks.
Yeah.
That baby now talks.
Mm.
That goat,
Yeah.
was saying yes, yes, yes. Now she talks. There's
Yeah.
a change in her personality, which is
Yeah.
where the mother-in-laws pull her back. The
Mm.
father-in-law work. The husband says, "How can you earn more?"
Mm.
So the resentment is not from the girls; it is from their families.
Mm.
Then we
Right.
started educating families that listen,
Mm.
there is so much demand, there is work here, we have a premium
Mm.
pricing, she'll make so much time flexibility, there is safety,
Yeah.
she's driving
Yeah.
children. And we started
Yeah.
telling them, hey, listen, this lady can
Mm.
bring in so much money to your house. She is going to be an
Yeah.
earning asset for you. And that's
Yeah.
when the thinking started changing.
Very nice. Very nice. So,
You know,
what were the other challenges you faced in terms of getting this? Like, because the reason I ask this is because usually when you start a business which is different, which is very, which is not conventional, which, where you're practically the leader in the market, right? You have to shape the market, and that means there are certain barriers. You have to navigate your way through it. So, you mentioned that. Family mindset, resistance from the family was one of it. What were the other challenges you faced?
the other challenge was the training. So we started
Okay.
sending them to the school for training because we thought okay, they are professional enough and they'll do their job.
Mm.
First of all, this woman has never sat in a car. Okay, so you
Yeah.
yourself mentioned that they're so apprehensive. So she's
Yeah.
suddenly, you want her to become a professional driver, and she's never sat in a car. She doesn't know where to put the
Yeah.
keys. Okay,
Yeah.
and when
Yeah.
she started going to the regular driving schools, her
Mm-hmm.
first retaliation came from the trainers, the male
Mm.
trainers. They were like,
Yeah.
"You are from my basti and you're going to go into a better caliber than me." It became
Mm.
a ego battle then and there in the first time she sits in the car. The
Mm.
battle was totally gender battle. Okay, the vibe
Yeah.
itself was like, oh, tu abhi maharani ban ke aayi hai yahan pe. You know what? Somebody's putting you on a
Mm.
pedestal, and
Yeah.
came there. So then the training itself used to be extremely ineffective. We were sending our
Yeah.
girls for 4 5 months without
Mm.
her being able to drive.
Yeah.
You know what a wastage of time, of
Yeah.
everything. So we changed the whole model. I learned how to train people, and I started
Yeah.
training my girls. I became a trainer from then on. So
Right.
I brought the sensitivity, I brought in
Yeah.
the sensitivity it took to train this woman,
Hmm. Hmm. Right. Right.
you know.
So,
My trainers,
so
they're the next leaders. You're being a leader here.
absolutely, absolutely. See, what you're net talking about is you are not just putting women who could drive taxis on the road. You are actually grooming a whole cohort of leaders
Yeah.
who were not only just
Yes.
driving, but they were taking responsibility for every moment. They were on the road with whoever they
Absolutely.
interacted with, all of it, which is quite, it's much more than just teaching someone to drive and putting them in a cab and getting them to drive, right? So, what worked for you? Clearly, a lot of things work for you because you built it up into a pretty well-known brand, a pretty large business. So tell us what worked for you.
What worked for me was first that I was the cabbie. So I was the role model that these girls looked up to, like, I
Mm-hmm.
want to be like her. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sheetal.
Mm-hmm.
Sheetal drove for us. She herself said that. Now, when you
Mm.
have such role models where,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
women from the marginalized communities are looking at you with dreamy eyes, they want to be you, that
Yeah.
works. Point number one.
Yeah.
Point number
Yeah.
two was, we owning the training module worked for us, because then
Hmm.
we designed it with the sensitivity to make her a leader. The
Yeah.
third thing that worked for us was, I wasn't placing myself as a cab. I was
Hmm.
always placing myself as an alternate mom dropping your kids to school.
Yeah.
And that gave us immense demand. Immense. I mean, pre-pandemic, we had a 4,500 client wait list of parents. So
Wow.
demand came in. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders started coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Women started going. These girls started working and earning and enjoying the job and getting the respect from clients. Okay.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
started talking and bringing more women. Here you get respect beyond money.
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah.
changing factor, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. So
So these,
I can see Sheetal make a comment saying, I was a proud Roo for a while in 2015. And Sheetal, I'm very proud of you too, by the way. But what strikes me is the word Roo, right? I
we
love the
can
way
use,
I love the way you branded it. I love the way, you elevated a cabbie to being a
yes,
mama kangaroo that carried a joey in its pouch with safety. So there was this whole thing.
yeah,
So where did that
yeah.
come from? I think that's a very brilliant piece of branding and marketing. So tell us more about it, because I also noticed the word "roo" is very prominently used in Taxshe. You're the founder. I have people who worked with you who are now coming on and saying, I was a proud Roo. So tell us more about the Roo, the brand, the Roo branding and positioning that you created.
So when we started Taxi, I told you I started it out with a couple of my friends, and we were thinking
Mhm.
of what logo do we put? I mean, what?
Yeah.
So we thought, let's look at an animal which is,
Mm.
cutie pie, which appeals to
Yeah.
kids, also has a
Yeah.
very motherly thing. And this
Yeah.
kangaroo just fit in, like,
Right.
so kangaroos are very mommy, and kangaroos are very strong also. You've seen videos of kangaroos
Yeah.
beating the hell out of people as well. I still love those.
Absolutely.
So the
Yeah.
so so this kangaroo thing just fit into
Yeah.
it, you know.
Yeah.
And when I
Yeah.
started calling us as kangaroo or the roo,
Mm.
it became a conversation starter for me. Everyone asked me, "What is this roo?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said,
Yeah.
"Wow, this is good." Everybody's
Yeah.
curious. It's a good branding thing, right? You give your card to somebody, and people talk of elevation and all this thing. I give my card to somebody that I'm a founder, Roo, and everybody asks me, "What in the world is that?" This is
Yeah.
it. My elevator pitch is giving me time to talk. It just fit in beautifully.
Fantastic. I think it's brilliant branding. I have to tell you, Vandana, this is
So
brilliant branding. Please go on.
yeah, so it's just that when we also started talking to parents that my Roo is going to come, and making them
Yeah.
understand the role that this lady is playing. She's not your driver category out here. The
Yeah.
respect that started coming in with this word, everybody, every client calls her a Roo. They write back to us. I have expats whom I've never met in my life. They got
Mm-hmm.
my reference from somewhere. It went to the court for months in advance. I get the
Yes.
call within a period of time. So it's become
Yeah.
such a brand. I've had other cab companies. There are two, three more cab companies in Bangalore, and even
Mm-hmm.
their drivers, clients have started referring them as Roos. So it's become a
Ah,
brand for a woman cabbie. Just sets.
absolutely. This is like the distillery and Xerox. This is how you. This is one of the best ways to actually create a, to be the leader in the market because you have actually created a brand that's so synonymous with the product category itself. In your case, the service category, right? So tell me,
Yeah.
how has your business flow changed over the past 7 years? Like you said, you started out driving. You had a handful of women who drove with you. You then became a trainer. You got women from marginalized communities. You made them leaders and rules. How has the business model changed over time? Because I know as a woman, when you're a new entrepreneur in a new category and you're breaking new ground, the flow is always organic. As an entrepreneur, you tend to go with the flow. So tell us about your business flow and its evolution over the past 7 years.
So we started off with first we started off just giving drivers, just like a your easy
Mm.
drive kinds, that I'll send you a driver to your place, share you and
Mm-hmm.
your kids.
Mm-hmm.
That was how we started off. From there, it evolved into the cab model. Okay,
Mm.
school pickups and drops. We did a bit of corporate drives, airport drives. The
Yeah.
pandemic taught us new tricks, I would say. So what
Mm-hmm.
happened during the pandemic was that we were crushed. We were just crushed. We were at zero, like zero, from wherever we were. And
Yeah.
very well sustained business, fixed business for the whole year. Everything got butchered. Now, what
Mm.
do we do? So
Mm.
then I realized that we had trained so many women to drive,
Mm.
okay? And
Yeah.
we had
Yeah.
that tact, we had that knack of making women drive. So we launched a separate brand called the Taxshe Break Free, where we
Mm.
started training clients like who
Mm.
wanted to get out and drive their own cars. Especially during the pandemic, there were women who were stuck. They had cars in their homes. They had to get
Yeah.
to the hospital and they couldn't drive. The
Yeah.
helplessness that came in, especially
Yeah.
during the second wave, was horrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
converted this skill of ours of training to training
Mm-hmm.
clients,
Mm.
women
Okay.
clients. That's
Oh,
where
very nice.
the business
Mhm.
really took shape.
So I'm very curious, Vanda, because
And then we
you
started
mentioned.
involving more women.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm very curious. I'm sorry to
Go ahead.
interject, but I'm really very curious about something you raised just now, which is the helplessness of women, particularly in the second wave of the pandemic, right? And I'm correlating this to something that you mentioned when we started our conversation, which was the bias of trainers, or the who are largely male when they were training women, right? So I have to ask you this question, and I ask you this question because it seems to me that there is this very popular but strong bias against women drivers. And they're the butt of jokes. There's these comments that are made. Women are told there's this whole shaping of a perception that women can't drive or are bad drivers. And did you come across this bias? And do you think this bias limits women from being mobile? What's your take on this?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, the bias definitely limits women from being mobile. And
Mm,
that's where an organization like mine comes in. I'll tell you,
mm,
look at it, if you've learned from a regular driving school, okay? An
mm,
experience I'm trying to, and this is what didn't work for my girls out there, and that's how I started this whole training thing. What happens is that when a woman goes and she's learning from a man to drive in a regular driving school, the first thing is her antennas are up. She is in
yeah,
this close proximity to this man, जो कभी यहाँ पे छुएगा करेगा, that
yeah,
antenna up with a man in that close prox. That's
yeah,
point number one. So am I going to look at the road, or am I going to be bothered about this man around here? That's one thing.
yeah,
The second thing that happens is that this trainer teaches you on dual clutch and a dual brake. So he handles the clutch and brake from his
yeah,
side,
yeah,
whereas all you're doing is managing the steering and the accelerator. Okay.
yeah.
Now, if boys go to a driving school after they're done with
Mm,
their 10 hours of nonsense, if I will call it, it's a nonsensical only. After 10 hours, boys can't drive, okay? But what happens?
mm,
Boys will go ask their friend, hey, bro, give me your car, let's go, okay? But we
yeah,
women don't go to other women and ask them for their cars. So
yeah,
then who gets left out? We get left out. We never learn to drive.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The
yeah.
male person in the house is usually, okay, not all men, but male person in the
Mm,
house usually will come and say, hey, leave it, man, you can't drive. Useless, forget ladies
yes,
can't drive. And then we get branded
yes,
that we can't drive.
yes,
The system itself is
absolutely.
faulty.
Yeah.
I have I have trained till now
Mm-hmm.
800 and some men, okay? 800 men to
Mm,
drive, whether they are from marginal communities or not marginalized communities, irrespective. And
mm.
hello, guys, every single one of them drives. Fantastic. So, who said women can't drive? Ask me.
Ab-
Try. Okay?
Absolutely.
What competition is this?
Absolutely. So I can see quite a few people have logged on. They are watching. Do say hello, people. If you have questions or comments for Vandana, please do put it in the chat box. I know, as you can see, Vandana is just bindas. She will tell it as it is. And this is your opportunity to ask all the questions you want to ask about women, driving, cabbies, rules, taxi, all of it. This is your chance. So, Vandana, what you just said COVID butchered your business, right? How have you been tackling it? How have you come around? How have you bounced back?
I bounced back even stronger than before. Okay. So, what did I do? I started a vertical for training men, correct?
Mm,
Now, I wanted more women who would also train them. Okay. I
mm-hmm,
noticed this. So, a lot of women in the middle and the upper management levels lost
mm-hmm.
their jobs during COVID. Okay. So, these are
Yes,
women who are at a very high caliber,
yeah,
maybe 45 years, 50 plus, have a lot of experience. Now they lost their
yes,
jobs, and then they'll get some tiddly piddly job after that to come back to
yes,
workplace. Correct? So I started
yes,
tagging these women. I'm like, now at least you start focusing. And I
hmm,
made them franchise partners with me. They brought in the experience of driving. I converted them into becoming trainers. I
Mm-hmm.
also banked on their confidence, their vision, their experience to hire more
Mm-hmm.
trainers under them and set up a small hub and spoke business model. Now, these
Wow.
franchise partners hire
Mm-hmm.
more women trainers. These women
Mm-hmm.
trainers train more women customers. These women
Mm-hmm.
trainers train the marginalized drivers to get them to the taxis faster. And I finally have an industry in hand. I call it the
Yeah.
WOOM. It's called Woman in Mobility Business. I've created
Wonderful.
an even bigger thing that I could ever fathom.
Absolutely. So that's
I'm no
fantastic.
longer alone. I have so many more with me. Yeah.
So that brings me to the next question. Vandana, despite we live in a world where diversity, equity, inclusion are big buzzwords, okay, and there are some companies that are trying to, integrate, do justice to it rather than check boxes. But there's a larger number of organizations that are neither interested nor doing justice to it. Taxi stands out as a business that is actually very different from every other business. And I don't talk about it just in the context of mobility or in the cab, people driving cabs. I don't even talk about it in that context. I would say in a global context, at a very broad context, this is a business that is by women, of women, for women. You've placed the woman at the center of the business, which means you have
Absolutely.
you have a, you have a business model that is scalable, that can be scaled laterally, vertically, across the 360 degrees, and it's all about women, right? Tell us tell us your journey of building a business that is so deeply women centered that that's your whole ethos. Tell us about that.
I think the one thing that binds every woman, okay,
Mhm.
working for me or believing in the cause is everybody sees beauty. They know the value in what they're doing.
Mm.
They understand how important this is for the society to, change.
Yeah.
We've been waiting for politicians, we've been waiting for people we looked up to make the change, and nobody did that. So this
Yeah.
business is all about women owning this cause. Every
Yeah.
woman who comes into this, whether as a franchise partner, whether as a trainer, whether as a driver, whether as just business development partners,
Mm.
everyone comes it with that single goal that let's change lives for our children and our next generation. My
Mm.
child should not hashtag me too.
Mm.
And that is the binding factor that makes it into such a robust and strong business. We are small, but we are
Yeah.
extremely grounded and strong in what we are doing,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I
Also,
think this
sorry.
is such a cause that women from the globe will associate with this.
If I also may say so, what also strikes me is one of the problems that we see in a lot of organizations that are not women centered, that are trying to accommodate. We have organizations which have been male centered for a very long time, and now we're trying to create space for women to squeeze in, right? Vis-a-vis the model you have is
Yeah.
build the business around women and the needs of the business. So I am guessing that means most of the key issues that we see in other organizations, notably a pay gap or a wage gap or all of that, that does not exist. Would I be right to make that assumption?
Oh, yes. In fact, I pay my girls way higher what the male cabbies and all get paid. I am like 3x. I'm like, this is the lady whom I'm going to encourage today. Then there are going to be more coming in. Yes, there is a pay gap between us. We are way better, guys. We are better. We are way higher. Guys have to beg me
Yeah.
for a job. I don't give them a job. I have only for women.
So this is also another key issue because women are so used, in many of our social roles and many of our, the way we are raised, the spaces we occupy. While women take on the huge burden of nurturing and caregiving, we don't have a fair value assigned to our efforts and the work that we do, or and that in turn affects the way we see ourselves and the way we value ourselves, right? So I think that for me is such a powerful that is such a powerful what you call it, powerful way, the powerful aspect of what you're doing. I just got distracted for a moment by a comment from Tara Majumdar, who says
Yeah.
if the prejudice against women drivers is dealt with logically, husbands and in-laws and trainers will fall in line. Vandana has kickstarted the process. Congratulations on being so empowering. Thank you so much, Tara, Auntie. So, my next question to you, Vandana, is really about women and entrepreneurship, right? You've gone out there, you changed the landscape, and this makes you an inspirational role model for many of us women entrepreneurs, right? What advice would you give a woman who is starting out in an entrepreneurial journey or is in an entrepreneurial journey and isn't really, owning her power? What advice would you give somebody who has entrepreneurial dreams and wants to make a big difference in the world?
First thing is stop allowing people to pull you down. The minute you try to do something, there will be at least 40 people who will tell you no, do it. Okay, at
Mm,
least, if not
mm,
more.
mm,
And you have to you have to be like the dog who won't leave the bone.
mm,
Okay, if you
mm.
want to do this, then you got to do this. If you're going to
Yeah,
leave that, then nothing, you're never going to move anywhere. Stop
yes.
letting people pull you down. Be like
Mm,
that rock which you can't be pulling down.
yeah.
Okay, let
Mm,
people say anything. Think this
mm,
is a lover you want to go and get married. You'll do everything against the world in the movie style to go out and get this guy. Business is like that. Everybody will say,
yeah,
no, 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 wrong, 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 wrong. Go get that
yeah,
guy, man. Get that business.
yeah,
That's my best advice I can give you. Don't leave it.
yeah, yeah. Right. So like I find I see this with a lot of women entrepreneurs, and this also comes up in conversations. There is this whole tendency to minimize themselves, right? There is this whole fear. It's almost a fear of saying, if I show up as I am with in all my power, with my vision and energy, I may be perceived as too much, or I may be perceived as
Yes,
threatening,
of
and
course.
therefore
Of course.
we see a lot of women dialing back. We see a lot of women who are really dialing back. I think before we came on, I said, even to the point of saying, I'm not a feminist, right? So what would you have to what advice would you have to give to them? Because these are women with dreams, these are women who want to do things, but at some level they are holding themselves back. And yes, they do need to stand up for themselves, but they are at the moment unable to do it. So, what kind of advice would you give them so that they can be big, bold, and really own their dreams and go after it?
A simple word, YOLO. You only
Okay.
live once. अब नहीं करोगी तो करोगी हैं.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop looking good for everybody all the time. Stop it. We are always trying to be good lookers. We are trying to please everybody in our life. How about
Yeah.
yourself? Selfish, thoda sa
Yeah.
selfish.
Yeah.
Important. No?
Yeah.
Self-care,
Absolutely.
selfish, whatever. It's okay if people are selfish. So what? So what? Let them call it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
entertainment for them. You just go
Yeah.
do your thing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it always boils down to you are busy taking care of everybody else. Who's taking care of you and who's watching out for you? You've got to be the person who is watching out for yourself.
I must tell you this particular. I talk to a lot of women when they're trying to learn driving. Okay.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
women come to me, they tell me, listen, I learned driving some 20 years back. And obviously,
Hmm.
then I was at a job that I didn't have the time for my children. I wanted to raise a family. My mom said,
Hmm.
you be a housewife and all that stuff. So she's left her dreams. And
Yeah.
then 20 years later,
Yeah.
the kids have grown up, and the husband
Yes.
is telling her, you're so out of fashion, you don't even know how to use a laptop, you don't know how to drive a car.
Yeah.
Hello? Did you allow her or give her the time to do anything?
Yeah.
So I train women for 15, 20 hours. I tell them, 20 hours, I'll make you a solid good driver. Okay.
Hmm.
20 years women have waited for them to learn driving, and
Yeah.
still they find it difficult to remove 20 hours for their own thing.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know
Absolutely. What you say is very
why?
right. Yeah, what you say is very right because I do get a lot of women in their 40s and 50s who come to me and say, I had a great career, but now, my kids have grown up. I'm not needed as much as I was, say about 10 or 15 years ago. I've been phased out of work and I don't know what to do. And it's very funny that sometimes when I ask them, what makes you happy? I find that a lot of them have not really allowed
Yeah,
themselves to sit with that question. The happiness is always dependent on somebody else
absolutely.
when really your joy is an inside out job. And others can augment it, but you have to really know what makes you happy inside. So you make a very, very crucial point here. But I think we're like almost at the end of the conversation now. Vandana, before we sign off, any last words, any comments, anything to share with our audience?
So I want to reach out to women who like this cause. Okay. Um, You may be somebody who knows how to drive, you may be somebody who doesn't know how to drive, you may be somebody who likes the cause, doesn't know, but I want to be involved with you, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah,
Just let me know. Okay. If you have the passion, I'll figure
yeah,
out a way of how we can work together. It's as simple
yeah,
as that. I want women coming from everywhere. I want to weave this fabric. There is nobody
yeah,
who's going to us. It's us who have to reclaim our spaces. So if this is a
absolutely.
cause which appeals to you,
Yeah,
ping me and we'll find a way. Whether part
yeah,
time, full time, 1 hour, something. One lady said, you know what? I'm not a great business developer. I'll help you make your career. I said, please be my guest. So just get on
yeah.
together, join together, shake the world up.
Yes, absolutely. I'm also going to add on over here because I've been following, like I said, I met Vandana for the first time an hour ago. That's it. This is the first time we are seeing each other. This is the first time we're having a conversation. We've had very brief yes, no's, for the past 2, 3 weeks. That's about it. But I have followed Vandana's journey for a while. And one thing I do know is you don't, if somewhere you feel you matter, if somewhere inside you have a dream and you're looking up to Vandana and saying, wow, she got it done. I wish I could be like that. Let me tell you the best way you can actually get on that journey is by having a conversation. So I would urge you, even if you don't, if
Yes.
you're not very sure of the cause, if you're not really sure if you want to drive, if you want to work with you, whatever it is, even if you have that, you don't have to know it to have that conversation. But my point is, if
Yeah.
you are looking at Vandana and saying, wow, I want to do what she's done, I want to do a TEDx talk, I want to be so bindas that I don't care when people tell me, hey, you're a cabbie, right? And I'll wear that badge with pride. I want to be the one who's changing a landscape. I want the one to change. If you want to be that person, let me tell you from experience, the best way to do it is by just picking up the phone or reaching out to the person and saying, hey, can we have a cup of coffee and have a conversation? That's the best way to do it. I would very, very
Yes.
strongly urge you to have that conversation. As always, every guest on joins me on conversation from the trenches. I urge my audience and the community to always reach out to them because they're phenomenal women who are doing phenomenal work. And even whether you work or not, whatever the universe decides, you will still take away a lot. I will add on to this. If you want to learn driving, if you have a car sitting out there in your garage and you've been looking at it and saying, "Oh, I wish I could drive," please, you know who to call right now. Vandana's contacts are on the post. You can reach out to her one on one. You can reach out to her via Taxshe. She's on Instagram. She's on LinkedIn. She's on Facebook. She's very, very accessible. Please do reach out if any of this resonates at any level with you. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. And I'm going to thank those who are going to be watching this conversation in the future as well, because I know our traction picks up over the next 48 hours. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for your comments. Vandana, once again, such a pleasure having you. Thank you so very much for joining us.